folks I'll just introduce in a minute are also. And I served on the Parks Recreation Cemetery Board for the city for 10 years. So I've been actively involved with parks for a long time. Our cohorts up here today that we're going to give, we're going to segment this thing to the four of us. We have Rachel Cox, who's a fellow realtor at Friends of Billings Dog Park. We have Sue Bressler, also with the dog park, and Jamie Clark, who is also a realtor and on our committee. I've handed out, from my part, two different pieces of paper. One shows the master plan for Centennial Park. I'm sure you're all aware of 32nd Broadmoor. They're doing a bunch of construction out there right now. And the second page is an actual blow-up of the 6.5-acre dog park that is a part of the initial phase infrastructure construction that's going on out there right now. The problem is the city only gave us $2.5 million to do the park construction, which was basically for grading, irrigation system, grass seed, and some other things. There's a restroom, there's the parking lot, there's a few other things. All the other, I'm sorry?
That's for the whole park.
That's for the whole park, including the dog park. And the remainder of the funds, which is probably close to another $2.5 million to $3 million, to fully build out the park, is going to have to be raised through these kind of grants or other fundraising exercises that the foundation is doing, and so forth and so on. So one of the things like we've done on the last page that I'll show you is we actually have some brochures that we can hand out to people about our fundraising program for the dog park and a fundraising program for the park as a whole. And right now we're actually trying to raise $450,000 from the foundation for a new playground. So I'm going to turn this over to Jamie as our we're going to do Sue second. You're good? Okay, this is Sue Bressler.
I'm Sue Bressler, and you'll realize quickly that I'm not a very good public speaker, but here goes. So I'm going to just give you a little bit of background about our committee, the Friends of Billings Dog Parks. Our committee was formed in January of 2008 with a goal of building 3 major dog parks at least across the city, one in the Heights, one on the West End, and one somewhere south central in the Billings area. So, and I guess I should also say that our committee is 100% volunteer. We don't have any paid staff at all. The first location that we identified was High Sierra up in the Heights, and so we had a number of fundraisers. That's a 7.5-acre park. We had a number of fundraisers. We had Wolfstock, we had a golf tournament, Par for Paws, we had the fun runs, we had several fun runs, and then we had a lot of private donations, and we raised $65,000 to open High Sierra, which quickly became the most widely used park in Billings on a daily basis. So we did a couple of trail counts. One was done in a week in September when it was sunny and wonderful, and the average daily use for that park was 702 visits per day. The high was 1,026, and the low was, the least used day was 537 people. We also, or people with their dogs. We also did a count in April when it was cold and windy and snowy, and that one, still the average use was 400 people a day, with a high of 660, and the coldest, ickiest day, there were still 130 people that came there with their dogs. So it's a very widely used park. It's good for people and their dogs to get out. It's good for the dogs to get out and exercise, good for the people to get out with them. It's also good for people who can't take their dogs walking. They can take them there and let them run, but people who can't necessarily do a walk with them by themselves, so the dogs get out and exercise. We would really, really appreciate your support, and we thank you so much for the opportunity. I thank you so much for the opportunity to come and talk to you today.
So I think I know almost everybody here, almost everybody. For those I haven't met, I'm Jamie Clark. I've been with Century 21 and a member of the bar since 2006, but I'm very, very new to the Friends of Billings Dog Parks. I've just been helping them out for a couple of months. I decided to join the committee because I live very close to Centennial Park, and I have a lot of dogs, and I just saw the value, and once I saw the park being developed, I was just like, wow, like this is going to be huge for the West End. Not just the dog park side, but the people side too. I mean, this is, I think, the first developed park in Billings since like the early 80s,
82.
82, yep.
So it's a big deal. It's a really great thing for our city. So 80% of Billings households own at least one dog, which is just crazy to me. We're a huge dog town, and that's well above the national average of 60%. According to a 2019 study by the Trust for Public Land, dog parks are one of the fastest growing amenities in the park systems in the U.S. That study was focused on the largest cities, but it's been growing, dog parks have been growing 42% over 10 years. According to the National Park and Recreation Association, 91% of Americans believe dog parks provide benefits to their communities. And that includes 94% of millennials, 92% of Gen Xers, and 89% of baby boomers. So as you probably know, Billings has been looking for ways to increase our workforce and specifically ways to retain millennials as part of that workforce. One of the top things that millennials consider when they buy a home is their pets. Realtor.com states that 73% of millennials currently own a pet, 89% of millennials who bought a home in 2018 owned a pet, and 79% of pet-owning homebuyers who closed on a property last year said they would pass up an otherwise perfect home if it did not meet the need of their pets. Yard space and local dog parks are top of mind in their decision making, and that surpasses even their thoughts, future thoughts on marriage and children. So, how does Billings compare to other cities in the state and regionally? Well, we kind of suck a little bit at the moment. Bozeman has at least 4 fully fenced dog parks and a couple more partially fenced. Only reason they're partially fenced is because they're a beach dog park, which means your dog can still leave via the water. But altogether, they have 9 off-leash dog parks. They have a really nice one that's being developed currently. They have a competition grade dog diving dock and an agility course. Missoula has 4 totally fenced dog parks and another one of the beach type parks. And I know that at least one of Missoula's dog parks has agility. And then regionally, looking bigger beyond us, Boise has 13 dog parks, which equals 5.7 dog parks per 100,000 residents. So, as members of the real estate industry, it benefits us to have community improvements that are attractive to both current and future residents of our city. I would love to see Billings, at a minimum, keep up with the other communities in our state, and I think having a super cool dog park will be a step in the right direction for us.
Great, thanks, Jamie. Rachel Cox here. I just want to kind of reiterate about the Billings Parks Billings Parks Preservation and Recreation Foundation. It's a big long, we're trying to shorten the. Rick and I
We are going to shorten it today.
We're on that committee, and also the Friends of Billings Dog Park. But I don't think people realize what that foundation has done for our community. It was formed in 1980, and I sat down with the guy at McDonald's one day, and he told me the whole story of how Riverfront Park got started, and how there was this stretch of land along the Yellowstone River, and how this foundation was able to get that to become Riverfront Park, and how they worked with a local law firm to make it so that they could get the status of a nonprofit and people could donate. That's this Preservation Foundation Committee. They're the ones that made it happen. And then since then, look at this long list. They have been an integral part, this Preservation Foundation, like the Moss Mansion, Amen Park, Bike Net, Swords Park, Yellowstone Kelly Interpretive Center, High Sierra Park. This foundation has been an integral part to make those all happen. And guess what? Not 1 penny of overhead goes to this foundation. It's all run by a board that's all run by a volunteer board. There are accountants, attorneys, construction folks, real estate agents that are on this committee. And as a group, they have just done wonders in our community at promoting parks, trails, you name it, anything to do with parks and trails and historic developments in Billings, Montana, they have done it, along with the arm of Friends of Billings Dog Park, which is all volunteer. Again, not one penny goes to overhead. It goes directly to what they're trying to promote. So I think if there's anything that we really want to stress to you guys, everything that we make, if we're chosen for the quality of life run or casino night, goes to the park. And we're hoping that, this is really big. With the foundation, or with that money, with our shade structure that we're trying to use for the parks with our money, we can have a plaque that says Village Association of Realtors donated by. And that's going to be, everybody goes by that and they'll see that forever, which I think is just huge, how we give back to the community. And again, Sue and I and all this committee, the Friends of Billings Dog Park, just remember this, High Sierra and Centennial. This little committee, $150,000. That's how much they've raised to make these 2 dog parks come to fruition. And we just donated, as part of that 150, $80,000. The city said, we ran out of money. And we said, oh, well, you gotta have a fence around the dog park to make it happen. And so we donated that $80,000, this committee, to make that fence happen at Centennial Park. So, you know, I think it's a great, both of these nonprofits are great organizations, and I think people love dogs, and I think it makes our community better. So we would appreciate you voting for us.
And just in final summary, I'll just take just one short second. As you all know, because you see the paper or anything else, the money, the city is strapped of money, of cash. Public safety is very, very important. So it is absolutely imperative that this group gets grants like this and other grants that we're applying for, or else we aren't going to be able to do anything at that dog park. It'll be a fenced area that, we won't have any fun things for the dogs to do. And so we can't go back to the city and say, please give us more money, because we already know what the answer to that's going to be. So, and thank you so much for the opportunity and for getting us where we are today, and we hope you vote for us. Thank you.
Did you have any questions, by the way?
Yes.
Yes.
The spirit of equality.